Good evening, good evening, good evening. It's your man, God of Dots, and we are back. Hope everybody is having a very good start to your week. Hope you had a very good weekend. And tonight and this week, we will be breaking down the AFC as we get ready to kick off the new season. Tonight will be AFC North and AFC East. I will give you my thoughts and opinions on each of the teams in those divisions and give you my picks, possible sleeper pick, possible dark horse picks for the night. We shall see. Now, let me turn this down just a little bit more because the music is kind of too loud in my headphones. Okay. Let's try that. All right. Okay, that works. Okay, so I can barely hear it. Okay, that's good. So like I said, tonight we'll be doing the first part of the AFC, finish up the rest of the AFC later on this week. Possibly put together a show for Freestyle Friday. I'm still working on some material for that. Y'all know me. I don't like to do a half put together show, so I'll be on the lookout for that. And then next week we'll be doing the NFC in the same fashion, giving you my picks, my dark horse, my sleeper picks, and my thoughts and opinions on that. And then at the end of next week's show, as we complete up the second part of the NFC, I will give you my Super Bowl picks. And you guys know how I am with my Super Bowl picks. Sometimes I'm on the money, sometimes I'm off. A lot of times my picks I'm off. I'm not going to lie to you. But anyway, let's go ahead and kind of get into it as we break down. We're going to start with the AFC North, which in my opinion is the most competitive division in football. When you look at teams in this division, top to bottom, each of these teams in this division could, things kind of break the right way as far as some of the, skill position players coming up and making plays like they're supposed to be making plays. This could be a division. I'm going to say this. This could be a division that can not only have all teams finish with an above 500 record, this also could be a division that sends at least 3 teams to the AFC playoffs. And starting out at the top of that list, we're going to be talking about the defending AFC North champions, team with the best record in the NFL last season, but came up short in the playoffs. The Baltimore Ravens returning back with 2-time MVP Lamar Jackson at the helm. Added Derrick Henry in the offseason to augment the running game. And I will say this. I think Derrick Henry is a great pickup considering what they gave up to get him as far as the price tag on Derrick Henry. I think he brings another element into the game, makes life a little bit easier on the outside for those receivers. I'm talking about Zay Flowers and namely Bateman, the 1s and 2 in the Ravens offense. So I think that's going to help them because it's going to automatically drop down another guy. Safety's going to have to come a little bit closer to the box. Not that the Ravens didn't have an already powerful run game with Lamar Jackson and the cadre of running backs that they have had in the backfield over the past couple seasons. But when you bring in a guy like Derrick Henry, a guy that demands at least 7, sometimes 8 in the box, even during the downtime in Tennessee the last couple seasons where he was not as productive as he could have been. And I don't want to put all that on Derrick Henry. I think a lot of that had to kind of do with the play style that the team was kind of transitioning to. Of course, you had a rookie quarterback start majority of the season last season. But when I look at the Baltimore Ravens, I know one thing: I'm going to get a good Lamar Jackson if he's locked in and focused. I think he's going to come in playing with a chip on his shoulder, considering that the season that he had kind of last year and how the season kind of ended in the playoffs. You saw the limitations of the Ravens offense kind of rear its ugly head at the wrong time. It seems like Lamar Jackson was not able to kind of read the blitzes. Kansas City did a very good job of keeping him contained, and you have to kind of do that with Lamar. I don't think Lamar has reached a stage yet where he's kind of able to sit back in the pocket and really pick apart defenses. A lot of his success comes from that running game that he has there in Baltimore. He will be getting back Mark Andrews at some point. I'm not sure if he's 100% back from his season in the injury. So you're going to have a Pro Bowl tight end. I think Zay Flowers is due to have a much better season stat-wise as he's kind of moved up into the number 1 position on the outside. Like I said, the addition of Derrick Henry in that backfield is going to cause, like I said, the safety's going to have to come up a little bit closer. It's going to have to respect the running skill and prowess of it. Derrick Henry, even at the advanced age for a running back that he is, I'm expecting Derrick Henry, if he stays healthy, be 1,000-yard back. I expect Lamar Jackson to once again be in the MVP conversation. And I know also with Baltimore, if I get nothing else, from Baltimore, and one thing that has always been a staple since the days of Ray Lewis is the fact that they have a upper echelon defense. Still returning back one of the best defenses in the NFL, and for that reason, you guys, you're listeners to the show. You guys know I talk about who's top tier in regards to AFC. Baltimore is definitely one of those teams that is in the top tier. Was in the top tier last season. I expect them to be in the top tier this season. I expect them to not only win the division. I expect them to win the division, but I also expect Baltimore to once again compete for the best record in the AFC. Possibly have home field advantage. It's going to come down for me. If you're looking at kind of chinks in the armor of Baltimore, is how far along is Lamar in his progression as a true pocket quarterback? Is this going to be the year where he kind of takes advantage of the single high safety looks he's going to get with Derrick Henry in the backfield? He's going to be able to exploit that, make plays down the field, become more of a dynamic passer of the football. That's probably the only question mark I have for Baltimore coming into this season. Like I said, I think this team is going to come in highly motivated, understanding that you had a great season, was clearly the best team throughout the majority of the season last year, and you just kind of let it slip away in a kind of a weak fashion. Let's call it what it is. The play calling left a lot to be desired. Especially in the playoffs, it left a lot to be desired. Wasn't no no creativity on the offensive side of the ball. Wasn't really putting Lamar Jackson in position to win that game. Kudos to Kansas City for having the right defensive scheme. We'll talk about them later on in the week. They're another one of those teams that I consider one of those tier one teams when we talk about NFL teams. And I got Baltimore. Baltimore is my pick for the division now. Second place is a lot of ifs. Second place is a lot of ifs because I can sit here, I can make an argument that Cincinnati is the second best team in this division. I can make another argument that Cleveland is the second best team in this division, and I could make an argument that Pittsburgh it could be the second best team in this division. I think that's where a lot of the discussion is going to be had throughout the season. I think Baltimore, like I said, is clear cut above those other teams for various reasons. But for my number two team in the division, I'm going to go Cleveland. Cleveland last year, you guys know, was my sleeper pick. I was kind of high on them when you kind of look at the roster that they had, some of the pieces that they have kind of brought in, bringing in Jerry Jeudy. You're going to have a returning Nick Chubb coming back for injury. Expect him to return back and be in full form. You are returning one of the best defenses in the league, led by Defensive Player of the Year, Myles Garrett. It's a lot to like in Cleveland. But the question mark for Cleveland, will the real Deshaun Watson step up? The Deshaun Watson we got last year is not the Deshaun Watson that we were accustomed to the earlier parts of his career when he was playing with the Houston Texans. I'm not sure. I'm gonna be honest with you. And Cleveland's kind of backed themselves into a corner with Deshaun Watson and the guaranteed money left on his contract. That's a lot of money to kind of eat. If you're trying to get off of him, he's not tradable. No team is going to trade for Deshaun Watson with the contract that he has. And you're kind of banking on him having a bounce back kind of season. I understand, last season was his first real season of starting since he's come back from the suspension. But he left a lot of plays out there, and it kind of cost Cleveland. Cost Cleveland in the playoffs. Wasn't able to kind of put it together. Deshaun Watson is the question mark for me. Deshaun Watson is the question mark. Do I expect him to play better? I expected him to play better last season. I don't know what I'm going to get from Deshaun Watson. And that's kind of the scary part with Cleveland. When you look at the running game, even without Nick Chubb last year, was one of the better running games in the league. I know what I'm going to get from the defense as long as they stay healthy. They're solid on all three levels of the defense. I know what I'm getting from those guys is the quarterback position. And we talk about how that's, so-called the most important position on the team. Deshaun Watson is the key. If Deshaun Watson plays closer to the level that he played with the Houston Texans, Cleveland could be in that discussion to kind of move up, bump up to being a tier one team. They have talent in a lot of places, have a lot of talent on the offensive line, a lot of talent in the backfield. Like I said, bringing it over Jerry Jeudy from the Denver Broncos to add to their receiving core gives Deshaun Watson a lot of weapons. But for me, it all comes down to Deshaun Watson. Is he going to be able to kind of put it together this season? Show why they gave him the money, why he was so sought after, even after the suspension. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think Deshaun Watson will play better, but what better looks like, I'm not sure what to expect from him. Am I expecting an MVP season from Deshaun? No. Maybe borderline Pro Bowl, maybe. I think if he could play borderline Pro Bowl, like I said, you can be having discussions about Cleveland now, but Cleveland possibly making a deeper run into the playoffs. What's going on, man? You know me, man. Hey, it don't matter who here, man. I rock out with the show. As we continue looking through the division, like I said, second place is kind of up in the air. I got Cleveland finishing second in the AFC North. In third, this might be kind of a shocker to a lot of people. I got Pittsburgh. As the number 3 team in that division. I think the biggest question you got to have with Pittsburgh is the same question they've had for a long time since the final days of Ben Roethlisberger. What's going on at the quarterback position? They brought over Russell Wilson, who had by all standards had a pretty good year last year in Denver. I know a lot of people was down on him because he wasn't playing at the MVP-ish type level that he was playing with the Seattle Seahawks, but he had a very good year last year. I want to say 26 touchdowns, just 8 interceptions. Denver was not a very good team, but he still had a very good season at the quarterback position. They bring him over as the presumed starter. But if you've been watching preseason football, they also brought over in a trade Justin Fields, and you guys know, despite the struggles that he had in Chicago, how much of a fan I am of Justin Fields. I think he just needs to be in the right situation, the right culture to kind of nurture him along. But Justin Fields, out of the two of them, has looked like the better quarterback. Now, Mike Tomlin's going to have a very important decision to make. Do you go with Russell Wilson, the proven starter, the proven winner? You brought him over. You don't have a lot of money tied up to him, or do you go with Justin Fields? I think if you go with Russell Wilson, it kind of limits your ceiling. I'm going to be honest with you. I think it kind of limits your ceiling as far as what are you able to do as play caller. You have good pieces in place. You have a couple good weapons on the outside, namely George Pickens is now your new number 1 receiver after they moved off from Deontay Johnson, who they traded to the Carolina Panthers. You do have Pat Freiermuth, a very good tight end. You do have Najee Harris and a very good backfield. Offensive line got a little bit better. Defensively, as long as TJ Watt is healthy, and that's kind of been like the big thing with Pittsburgh. TJ Watt always finds a way to kind of get hurt at really the most inopportune times. But when he is on the field, he is a game wrecker. He is definitely in a discussion when we're talking about the best defensive player in the league with the pressure that he puts on an offense from that linebacker position. I think if you get a healthy season out of TJ Watts, I mean, the guy had 19 sacks last year. If you're able to get even that level of production that he gave you last year, and I think he could be better. TJ Watt has gotten better every year that he's been in the league. I think he could be better this season. If you're getting a healthy season from TJ Watt, that kind of, for me, kind of gives them the nudge over the 4th place team who is in the division, which I think will be the Cincinnati Bengals. But I think Pittsburgh has got a big decision to make at quarterback. I think if you're looking for just this season alone, you might start Russell Wilson, see what you got, see how he produces. Has not looked that good in training camp, has not looked that good in the preseason. So I'm not sure if that is to move. Like I said, I think Russell Wilson kind of has hit his ceiling. I don't think he's going to move the needle like that. But I think if you're able to start Justin Fields, and like I said, I've been a big Justin Fields fan since his days at Ohio State. I think he was done wrong in Chicago. I don't think they did enough to kind of put him in a position to first of all be him. Justin Fields is a very dynamic quarterback, much in the same vein as a Lamar Jackson. And I think, if he's able to, along with Mike Tomlin, be put into a position where he's able to make plays, not only with his arm, but with his feet, simplify the game for him. He has better weapons in Pittsburgh than he had in Chicago. I think Justin Fields could be your quarterback moving forward. If I'm Mike Tomlin, I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers head coach, so job security is not an issue. if I'm Tomlin, I start Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields gives me a little bit more on the offensive side as far as being dynamic enough to not only stretch out plays and extend plays, but I think he's not that bad of a passer. I think he's suitable enough as a passer to where with better weapons he'll have better numbers. Justin Fields will be my pick to be the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, but the money says, Russell Wilson ends up starting, and like I said, it's not bad. He didn't have a bad year last year, but I think he has kind of hit his ceiling. He's kind of plateaued, and he's kind of what he is right now. And I think if you have Russell Wilson and he's the starter the entire season, I'm not sure if this team gets into the playoffs. I'm gonna be honest with you. I do think this team is good enough, either with Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, to be a playoff contending team. This was one of my dark horse picks for them last couple of years. This is a team that is capable enough to make it into the playoffs. Very close last year to getting into the playoffs, but I think Russell Wilson, he's the starter. I think this team ceiling is about 9, maybe 10 wins. I think with Justin Fields, maybe you get 10 to 11. We're talking about a game or two, but when the AFC as competitive as it was last year, and it's going to be competitive this year, when we're talking about a team with maybe 11 wins not making it into the playoffs, I think you got to kind of roll the dice here. Go with Justin Fields, see what you have. Let him be the young playmaker that he is. And if it doesn't work out the first couple of games, you still have Russell Wilson on the roster, who can come in and still be a solid quarterback in the system. Like I said, you have a lot of weapons there in Pittsburgh to be successful. But it comes down to, who's starting at quarterback. Speaking of quarterback, as we kind of transition over to the Cincinnati Bengals, the team I think is going to finish last. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing when you kind of look at it. I think this team is going to have a winning record. You still have Joe Burrow as your starting quarterback. He's looked good in camp. If he can stay healthy, maybe. But the odds of him staying healthy the entire season is kind of a 50-50 kind of thing. He tends to kind of get hurt. Cincinnati has made some upgrades to the offensive line, but I'm not sure if those moves that they made is kind of really going to move the needle for me. I think Cincinnati is the fourth best team in this division, namely because when I look at the other three teams above them, and not that Cincinnati has a bad defense, but I think Baltimore's defense is better. I think Cleveland's defense is better, and I think Pittsburgh's defense is better. Now, Cincinnati has a pretty good defense out there, but when you look at the rest of the division, they kind of fall behind on the defensive side of the ball. Now, if Burrow is healthy, you have a very engaged T. Higgins. You have a very engaged Jamar Chase on the outside. They have an opportunity to finish possibly second in this division with the talent that they have on the offensive side of the ball. And like I said, the defense played pretty good last year. Even without Joe Burrow there, this team was able to still kind of be in the fight as we talk about, playoff contention. But this season, when I look at the rest of the division, to me, Baltimore is head and shoulders above the rest. I think Cleveland, if they can get a much better Deshaun Watson than they got last year, has the talent to return back to the playoffs. I think Pittsburgh, depending on who they started quarterback, has enough talent on both sides of the ball to make it to the playoffs. And like I said, this could be the first division in a very long time where all the teams finish with an above 500 record. I could see 3 teams from this division making the playoffs. I could see Baltimore once again grabbing that number 1 seed, and we'll kind of talk about that a little bit later in the week as we break down the rest of the AFC. Speaking of the rest of the AFC, we're going to move on to the AFC East. Now, this is when I kind of looked at this division. with the offseason moves that was made by all of these teams, the additions that they had, the guys coming back from injury, it was kind of hard. But the only thing that wasn't hard about who's going to finish last, and I think that's clear to anybody that has watched football over the last couple of years. It's going to be the New England Patriots. The Bill Belichick era is over. We're starting the Gerard Mayo, who I think is going to be a pretty good head coach if given the opportunity, but he doesn't have a lot to work with in New England. You do have Drake May, rookie quarterback. I believe he's going to be the starter. If I was them, I would make him the starter going to the season. I mean, you have nothing to lose. You're not going to be competing for the division. You're not going to be competing for the playoffs. You do have a couple good skill players on the outside. You have Bourne on the outside. You have Ramondre Stevens, who's a pretty decent running back. So you have some options on the offensive side of the ball, but I think you kind of throw Drake May in there, let him get his reps in. I'm expecting him to have a Peyton Manning-esque start to his career where, he's trial by fire. Trial by fire. You're not, like I said, you're not competing for the division. You're not competing for the playoffs. When I look at the Patriots, this kind of looks like, when you look at the roster, especially with you trading your best defensive player from last year, Matthew Judon, his team looks like maybe a 4, maybe 5-win team. But hey, I've been wrong in the past, but this looks like a 4 to 5-win team. This doesn't look like, doesn't look like a team that's going to be a serious threat to anybody in that division. So for that reason, I'm not going to say this is a throwaway season, but if I'm Gerard Mayo, see what I have in Drake May. See what I have in Drake May. Go ahead, get him out there, get him the reps, get him the experience. There's no need to kind of have him sit on the bench and watch. It doesn't serve you in the long term to do that. Let's see what you have with them. Get a pretty good starting assessment of them and kind of go from there. Now, when I look at the other teams in this division, it's kind of hard to tell who is the top dog. The top dog for the past 4 years has been the Buffalo Bills, but I look at the Buffalo Bills with some of the subtractions they've had on the defensive side of the ball, on the offensive side of the ball, namely Stephon Diggs being traded to the Texans this offseason. I think Buffalo kind of takes a step back. I think they come back a little bit closer to the pack, and it took them to the last couple of weeks of the season to win to this division last year, and for that reason, I don't have Buffalo winning the division. I think Buffalo is definitely a playoff caliber team. You have Josh Allen, who's been in the MVP conversation routinely. If he's able to kind of cut down on the turnovers, if they're able to develop more of a running game to kind of balance out and not put so much pressure on Josh Allen to be the entire offense, maybe. But when you lose the kind of players that they lost and replace them with guys that or have not proven it, think about it. They moved on from the starting one receiver, Stephon Diggs. They lost the number 2 wide receiver, and he was a very good number 2, and Gabe Davis. You lose him. Some of the starters that you lose in the secondary on the other side of the ball. What's going on, Mark? When you look at Buffalo, I think you lost a little bit too much. And like I said, it was a dogfight last year for you guys to even win this division. And for that reason, when you're losing the kind of talented players due to salary cap constraints, I got Buffalo definitely making it into the playoffs, but this is not my pick for the division. Now I got New England finishing last. I got Buffalo finishing third, who could be a playoff team, could be end up higher in the division. But I look at this division, it's going to come down to the Miami Dolphins, and it's going to come down to the New York Jets. And I think the biggest question for both of those teams is the health of the quarterback. Aaron Rodgers missed all of last year with an ACL. He's looked pretty good in training camp thus far. I'm not one to doubt Aaron Rodgers when he's on the field. Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks of this generation, has been one of the best quarterbacks of this generation. I think if he's healthy, especially with the additions they've made to their offensive line to kind of help keep him upright, help keep him safe, namely Morgan Moses, bringing in Tyron Smith, left tackle, former left tackle for the Dallas Cowboys. I think they've made enough improvements along the offensive line to it be a whole lot better. And you're going to have a full season from Breece Hall. You're going to have Garrett Wilson out there, a bona fide number one receiver, and you have a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers who knows how to work when he has weapons, knows how to orchestrate an offense, has done it time and time again. It's proven it. Even with the latter years of him in Green Bay, was still one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL when you kind of look at the numbers as far as touchdown to turnover ratio. But can he stay healthy? We're talking about a guy who's going to be 40 this year, coming off of a major injury. They've made improvements to the offensive line, but it's not one of the best offensive lines in the conference. Can they keep Aaron Rodgers upright? I think defensively, I have no questions about the Jets. I think the Jets are going to have one of the better defense once again in the NFL. Think about it. This team was competitive. Yeah, they lost a lot of games and with a sub 500 record last year, but the defense cannot be blamed for that. Defense had a hell of a year. You just didn't have a quarterback. I mean, you had what's his name? What's the kid Wilson? He was trash. You had Tim White as a starting quarterback for a period of time. He was trash. If you get a full season from Aaron Rodgers, this team with the defense that they has, with Aaron Rodgers at the helm, could be in line to win this division. Could be in line. The Jets could be in line to win this division. I think that'll be a major accomplishment. And they could make some noise in the playoffs. But I do think the Jets are definitely a playoff caliber team if, keyword being if, they can keep Aaron Rodgers healthy for the entire season. Much when we're talking about health, you got to be talking about health when we're talking about the Miami Dolphins. When you look at them on paper, and this is the scary thing about Miami, when you look at them on paper, they have a lot of talent on both sides of the ball, but namely, they got a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball. Talking about Tyreek Hill on the outside, Jalen Water on the outside, Devon Achane at running back. They have a lot of talent, have a lot of speed. The question is, can Tua play a full season? He has yet to play a full season since coming into the NFL. He always seems to get nicked. He had issue with concussions last year. Can they keep him healthy? Can they keep him? If he's able to stay healthy with the weapons that they have on that offensive side of the ball, and they have the best looking offense in that division. Defense, they made some moves last year, made some more moves through the draft this year and in the offseason to kind of improve the pass rush, get after the quarterback a little bit more. Still have a pretty good defense out there in Miami. But if Tua is healthy, and we were talking about Tua at different parts of last season, being in the MVP conversations. Tua is healthy. Tua can play a full season. We might be talking about the Miami Dolphins taking over the crown of this division, and I think we're going to get Tua for a good majority of the season. Do I think he gets nicked up a little bit? Yeah, I mean it's kind of what to expect when you're talking about a quarterback of his size and his frame. He's going to get nicked. He may miss a game or two. Hopefully, it's not due to concussions. But I think Miami Dolphins is my pick. This is just my pick, and y'all know how I am with my picks. Sometimes they off, sometimes they on. But I got Miami winning the AFC East this year. I think the Jets finished second. I think Buffalo finished third. I think all three of those teams, you can make an argument for Buffalo remaining on top of that division. You could make the argument that the Jets, with a healthy Aaron Rodgers, with the talent that they have, could be kings of that division. But I think Miami, with the weapons that they have, if they're able to stay healthy, I think they can run out, get a big enough lead as far as the division race. Miami tends to kind of, slow down in December. I don't know what it is about these warm weather teams. When it comes to December, they don't play to the same speed and level they were playing early in the season. But I think Miami, if they're able to race out, get a big lead in the division, they could pull it away from it. And I got Miami. So as of right now, we're talking about the divisions. We broke down the AFC North tonight, broke down the AFC East. Come back on Thursday for that show. We're going to be breaking down the rest of the AFC South, and the AFC West. And next week I'll be giving my Super Bowl picks. So right now I got Baltimore winning the AFC North. I got Miami winning the AFC East. I got the Jets making the playoffs. I think Buffalo could be fighting for a playoff spot. I got Cleveland making the playoffs, and I think Pittsburgh could be fighting for a playoff spot. But overall, these are two of the best divisions from top to bottom. We look at how competitive they are, how close and even the teams are as far as record wise and talent wise. These are two of the better divisions in the NFL. I wanted to kind of start with these two because I think these are the two hardest divisions to kind of break down. Because when I look at the rest of the NFL and those other divisions, it ain't much to break down. Be honest with you. It ain't much to break down. But anyway, man, appreciate y'all taking the time out to listen to little old me tonight. Like I said, be back here on Thursday. We finish out the AFC preview. Next week, we'll be doing the NFC part 1 and part 2. I'll give you my Super Bowl picks as we get ready to start the new season. College football starts next week. College football season kicks off next week. So I'll be tuned into that, getting ready for the upcoming season. And y'all know how we do around here. I'm going to keep coming at you with the latest and greatest from the world of sports, no matter NFL, NBA, whatever. But I'm getting ready for the season. I'm hyped up, man. And can't wait, man. I can't wait. It's always kind of like that lull between seasons, between basketball being over, football kind of getting back. It's always that kind of, for me, dead space. Listen, nothing against baseball. If you're a baseball nut, baseball fan, kudos to you. I just can't keep up with 162 games and the playoffs. It's way too much for me. I start to kind of see what's kind of really going on with baseball when we get to kind of September, October. Other than that, it's too much going on. But hey, thank you for taking the time out to listen to little old me. It's always appreciated. Remember, like, share, subscribe, leave comments, man, and on all the good stuff. It's always appreciated around here. I'm gonna end you off with a phrase that pays. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but every time you learn. And I'm out.